Stop what you are doing, look up. You are watching a jet fighter soar at 500 miles per hour, low over the North Atlantic. It's sleek, silent, and carries the most advanced sensor array of its time. Then, without warning, the engines throttle down, the wings twist, in a move that defies all logic. The aircraft doesn't land. It plunges into the icy water, instantly becoming a submarine capable of diving deep beneath the waves. This is not science fiction. This was $1 billion spent creating the most ambitious, most secretive, and most absurd military weapon of the Cold War, the Flying Submarine, Project TRITON. Its promise was absolute invisibility, capable of delivering a small espionage team anywhere in the world without leaving a single trace of its approach. It promised to end both naval and air superiority simultaneously. But the engineers who created this hybrid forgot the ultimate rule. Physics accepts no compromises. When you design a machine to be perfect for the air, light, rigid, and perfect for the water, heavy, pressure-resistant, you do not get two perfect machines, you get one, which is fatally flawed in both environments. TRITON was not merely a machine, it was the pinnacle of ambition that cost lives. Every component was ingenious, from the folding wings to the water ballast system that could be pumped in seconds, but behind that genius lurked a fatal engineering decision that turned the concept into the most expensive coffin of the Cold War era. We know the official story. It was scrapped due to budget overruns. But the true reason for its termination lies in a single, fundamental law of fluid dynamics that forced the engineers to choose between flying speed and diving depth, and their choice led directly to its inevitable, costly demise. The demand for TRITON was rooted in the existential paranoia of the Cold War. Seeking the cause, both Soviet and NATO intelligence had perfected radar and sonar detection. A fixed boundary of visibility existed. The TRITON was the attempt to bypass the established rules of espionage. The lead engineer, Dr. Harris, viewed the project as an intellectual challenge. He designed a hull made of a novel titanium steel alloy, a material light enough to achieve flight speeds but theoretically strong enough to withstand the pressure at 100 meters depth. The wings were designed to be sealed and then rapidly flooded with water for negative buoyancy, transforming the plane into a true submarine. The initial airborne trials were promising. TRITON flew like a competent, if sluggish, jet, but the real problems began during the transition phase. The sheer complexity of instantly sealing every single air intake, joint, and sensor port, while moving at high speed, was a mechanical nightmare. Every single moving part was a potential leak under pressure. The engineers quickly realized that the constant stress of transitioning between air and water was causing microscopic fatigue in the metal. Dr. Harris had built a machine that suffered from metal exhaustion every time it landed in water, but the generals refused to accept the evidence. The machine was destined to fail, but a far more immediate catastrophe was lurking in the most mundane component of the entire project, the single, crucial seal that guarded the fuel lines. The project reached its moment of truth during deep-sea trials. The engineers realized the lightweight aviation panels needed to achieve flight speed were structurally inadequate for the planned 100-meter dive. To safely reach 100 meters, they needed to increase hull thickness by 30%. This weight increase would render the plane too slow to escape enemy radar. If they prioritized flight speed, the vehicle could only safely dive to 40 meters, where it was easily detectable by advanced sonar. They were stuck between being too slow in the air and too shallow in the water. Under immense pressure from the Pentagon, Dr. Harris was forced to compromise. He reduced hull thickness to prioritize speed, but knowingly accepted the risk of diving below 40 meters. This was the fatal choice. They built a $1 billion machine that could only use a fraction of its advertised capability. The structural compromise was the project's technical death sentence, but the ultimate catastrophe occurred not because of hull pressure, but due to a small, critical valve failure during a deep test dive. This valve, designed to separate the air fuel from the water ballast, failed under pressure. allowing ice-cold seawater to mix with highly volatile jet fuel. The physical failure began in the North Atlantic during a deep dive test. As the machine passed the 35-meter mark, the increased pressure on the compromised hull caused microfissures in the seals around the fuel lines, precisely where Dr. Harris had thinned the metal. Cold seawater began seeping into the wings, contaminating the fuel tanks. When the crew attempted to resurface and engage the jet engines, the waterlogged fuel choked the turbines. The aircraft aborted its takeoff, and the now crippled TRITON was left dead in the water, a helpless, billion-dollar military secret floating on the surface. The accident exposed the fundamental flaw. Dual purpose meant double vulnerability. The machine was too heavy to fly effectively, too thin to dive safely, and too complex to operate reliably. The military brass were forced to confront the impossible liability. Who would pilot a machine where the failure mode was almost certain death by drowning or explosion? The project was immediately classified and shut down, but before the final prototype was scrapped, the remaining engineers, desperate to prove their original vision, made one final, unauthorized modification. They built a completely autonomous, drone-like version, TRITON 2, loaded it with sensors, and sent it on a secret, unmanned mission to the deepest trenches of the ocean, where it vanished without a trace. The failure of TRITON was a success for bureaucratic prudence. It taught the military one definitive lesson: simplicity is the ultimate weapon. The complex hybrid was replaced by highly specialized, reliable, single-function tools. The modern, deep-diving stealth submarine and the advanced long-range reconnaissance drone. The technology that worked was fragmented and perfected separately. TRITON failed because it sought total control, the ability to be invisible everywhere. It serves as a reminder that technological ambition, when pursued without respect for the limits of the natural world, is doomed to fail, regardless of the budget. The official failure of the TRITON was recorded as a technical fault in the fuel-water separation valve. However, the men who flew the prototype knew the truth was far more complex and terrifying. Human error versus engineering flaws. The pilots, often former Navy SEALs and highly decorated aviators, were subjected to an impossible training regime. They had to master flying an inert, heavy jet one moment, and managing ballast and trim like a submarine the next. The cognitive load was immense, and the training cost was astronomical. The key near disaster occurred during a pressure test conducted in a controlled environment before the contamination incident. The team placed a full-scale TRITON hull inside a massive hydropressurized tank. The hull was supposed to resist the pressure of a 100-meter dive. At 95 meters, the hull showed structural failure, not a catastrophic rupture, but a rapid, unpredictable implosion risk. The stress on the titanium steel alloy was simply too high for the lightweight design required for flight. The chilling report that followed was entirely suppressed. Dr. Harris was told to falsify the data, stating the hull met the 100-meter threshold. He refused, signing a dissenting report which later served as a primary piece of evidence against the project's financial backers. This moment of scientific integrity was the first torpedo launched at the billion-dollar project. The project was now driven by a lie. The pilots were flying a machine they knew could implode at any moment if they dove too deep. This immense military secret, compromised by a structural lie, had to be moved, and the decision to move the damaged prototype in high seas would lead to a catastrophic incident that revealed the project's existence to a hostile foreign power. Following the engine failure and emergency resurfacing, the crippled TRITON prototype was adrift in international waters, unable to fly or dive, a massive, floating vulnerability. The U.S. Navy initiated a top-secret Black Ops salvage operation. The goal was simple: sink the prototype before any foreign power could claim it, or worse, study its technology. The Soviets, monitoring the unusual U.S. naval activity in the area, suspected a major technological failure. They dispatched a specially equipped research vessel, ostensibly a trawler, to intercept the damaged hybrid. The race was on. the salvage team faced a terrible dilemma. They could not tow the massive TRITON quickly enough, and sinking it prematurely would destroy the remaining evidence. They decided to sacrifice the outer wings, the fuel contamination zone, to make the central titanium hull lighter and more maneuverable. This was the moment the flying concept died forever, reducing the TRITON to an expensive, fast submarine hull. The salvage was nearly successful, but the Soviet trawler arrived just as the hull was being secured. A silent, tense standoff ensued in the high seas. The TRITON, though crippled, still possessed a highly sensitive sensor array. In a final, desperate act, the salvage team activated the final, classified defense protocol, sending out a signal that was not a self-destruct sequence, but a chilling, encoded message straight into the heart of the Kremlin's intelligence network. The final blow was delivered not by the ocean or the Soviets, but by the U.S. Congress. Money and power news of the catastrophic salvage operation, coupled with the immense, escalating costs, which had now reached well over $1 billion, finally broke through the high-level classification. Senatorial investigators demanded a full audit. The audit revealed massive discrepancies in Dr. Harris's original budget estimates, particularly concerning the cost of the specialized titanium alloy machining and the highly volatile cryogenic fuel handling systems. The military had continually lied to Congress, justifying the expenditure by inflating the TRITON's predicted range and payload. The project was officially killed after a courageous junior engineer leaked Dr. Harris's suppressed structural integrity report, proving that the failure was known and ignored for months. This final act of conscience proved that the TRITON was not a structural failure, but a moral failure driven by a small group of ambitious individuals obsessed with prestige. The public outcry was enormous. The project was officially abandoned, the remaining prototype sealed in an arid desert hangar, never to see water or air again. But the most bizarre twist came years later, when decommissioned Navy vessels operating in the South Pacific began reporting strange, fleeting sonar signatures, moving at impossible speeds and depths, signatures that matched the final, autonomous prototype, TRITON 2, suggesting the dream had simply gone rogue. The TRITON is the perfect case study for the paradox of the perfectionist. Dr. Harris and his team were so focused on achieving the ultimate hybrid capability that they ignored the fundamental principle of reliability. The machine was designed to achieve 100% of two conflicting goals, yet resulted in 0% mission capability. The machine's failure fundamentally redirected naval engineering. The money saved from canceling the TRITON was poured into developing acoustic stealth technology for existing submarines and advanced materials science, focused on building single-function machines that were perfect at one job. The military learned that it is cheaper and safer to use two specialized machines, a fast jet and a stealth submarine, than one complicated machine that fails catastrophically. The gleaming, utopian vision of the TRITON was replaced by the cold, effective reality of the unseen. The legacy is in the silence, the absence of radar pings on modern stealth aircraft, and the absence of sonar returns from modern submarines. The greatest invention of the TRITON failure was what it taught us to stop building, but the TRITON concept continues to haunt the periphery of engineering, with the rise of advanced battery technology and specialized material science. Modern engineers are once again quietly dusting off the original TRITON blueprints, asking if the failure was merely a problem of 1960s materials, and if the $1 billion dream is finally ready to take flight and dive. In the modern world, the TRITON was a $1 billion expenditure that provided the U.S. military with an invaluable, yet devastating, lesson. Technological overreach is the most expensive variable. The ultimate cost, its true cost, was not merely the money, but the betrayal of scientific integrity and the waste of human effort. It forced the realization that military solutions must be insurable, reliable, and understandable, not simply ambitious. The story of the Flying Submarine leaves us with a critical, ongoing ethical dilemma. if a modern version of the TRITON could be built safely today for the same cost, but only had a 50% chance of political acceptance by global powers, should the project be funded? Is the pursuit of the ultimate weapon worth the risk of global instability? We want to know what you think. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one. This was never built. We'll see you next time as we dive deep into another lost future.